That thing that Donna and Angie had just invited into their home was a demon, and what it really wanted was to possess a human host. Today's story is so famous that it has inspired multiple Hollywood horror films, but the true story behind these films is arguably even more creepy and even more horrifying than these films ever were. But before I get into the story, if you're new here, welcome to StoryVault, where I post stories about true crime, mysteries, and strange occurrences. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe and comment down below with what you found interesting. But with no further ado, let's open the vault.
A story that will torture your thoughts by day and poison your dreams by night. No words that can be written, or brushstrokes laid on canvas that can describe the stark and utter the night that Annabelle died.
The emptiness will haunt you.
Our story begins in the 1800s with a man named Mr. Higgins and his wife, Mrs. Higgins, who were both living in the state of Connecticut with their 7-year-old daughter, Annabelle. Now, to anyone looking from the outside, the Higgins were a perfectly normal family. Mr. Higgins was a respected toy maker, and his trade made him enough money in order to provide him and his family with a very comfortable lifestyle. And he and his wife also had a very good relationship, and their daughter Annabelle was as happy of a little girl as you could possibly imagine. Being the daughter of a toy maker, Annabelle always had a generous supply of her favorite dolls and toys. So by all accounts, the Higgins family was as normal could be. But all that would change in just one fateful day. On this fateful day, the Higgins family decided that they would go on a picnic in a nearby meadow. This idea sounded great to everyone, so they would all pile in their station wagon and Mr. Higgins would begin driving down the road towards this meadow so they could have a picnic. But unfortunately, as they were driving down this road, they would actually get a flat tire, so Mr. Higgins would have to pull off to the side of the road, and then they would all get out of the car, and Mr. Higgins would go over and start to fix the flat tire. But in a tragic twist of fate, as Mr. Higgins was pulling off the tire, one of the lug nuts came loose and flew out into the road. And before either of the parents could do anything, their 7-year-old daughter ran out into the road to get it. And as soon as Annabelle ran out into the road, she was unfortunately hit by an oncoming car. And Annabelle's mother and father were completely devastated by the tragic loss of their daughter, and they prayed for God to bring their daughter back. But she was gone, and the Higgins had to do their best to just move on with their lives after the tragic loss of their precious daughter. But as you may have guessed, this story is far from over. Years later, in 1970, a young woman named Donna was living in this same area, and she had just gotten accepted to nursing school. And as she was getting ready to go to nursing school, Donna decided that she would get an apartment with her best friend Angie, who had also just gotten accepted to go to the same nursing school. So their idea was they would both get an apartment together and they would move out and they would go to school together and they would have this really good college experience because they would go to school together and they could study at home together and ask each other questions and help each other with homework, and it would just be this really, really great college experience. So Donna and Angie got their apartment together, and our story picks up when they were moving into their apartment and Donna's mother gave Donna a Raggedy Ann doll as a housewarming present. Donna's mother had given her this doll because she wanted her to know that even though she was moving out and getting her own place and going to college, she wanted her to know that Donna would always be her mother's little girl. And Donna was delighted to get this present from her mother, and she happily took it into her apartment with her and she put it in her bedroom. But it didn't take long for Donna to begin to notice some strange things about this particular doll. At first, it started off very small. Donna would put the doll in a specific place in the room, and then she would go away and come back, and she would find the doll was in different positions, like maybe the arms were folded, or maybe the legs were in different positions, or the head was up, or the head was down. It just seemed like the doll was shifting positions without really anybody doing anything to it. And at first, Donna didn't really pay much attention to this, thinking that maybe her mind was just playing tricks on her, but eventually, as she would go away and come back, she would begin to find the changes in this doll becoming even more drastic. Like sometimes she would put the doll, say, on her bed, and then she would go away for just a little while, and then she would come back and it would be on the floor. or it would be on the dresser. Pretty much wherever Donna would put this doll, every time she would leave and come back, the doll seemed to be in a different place or different position in the room. And after a while, Donna was convinced that her roommate Angie had to be doing something, playing some kind of a trick on her. This didn't seem like a very good explanation because Angie didn't really seem like the kind of person who would be trying to play a trick on her, let alone a long, drawn-out trick like this. And even if it was a trick, it didn't really seem like a very good one. But after the doll had kept on moving around for a certain amount of time, eventually Donna would go to Angie and ask her, like, hey, are you moving my doll around for some reason? And Angie had no idea what Donna was talking about. Like, no, I'm not moving your doll. Why would I do that? And as time went on, after Donna had told Angie about what was going on with this doll, Donna and Angie began to notice the behavior of this doll becoming even stranger. Not only would it be moving around Donna's room, but eventually it would begin moving in different areas of the house. Sometimes when the girls would go off to school, Donna would put the doll in her bedroom, and when they would come back, the doll would be in just bizarre places, like in the kitchen or in the living room, when Donna was very specific that she had put the doll on her bed or on her dresser. And not only was the doll consistently moving positions, but Donna and Angie would also begin finding little handwritten notes on pieces of parchment paper that would say things like, "Miss me" or "Help me." And the strange thing was that these handwritten notes seemed to be written on a type of parchment paper that neither Donna or Angie kept in the apartment at all. So it was clear to them that somebody had to be breaking into their apartment, moving the doll around, and writing these cryptic notes before leaving. And even though it seemed totally bizarre that somebody had to be playing some kind of trick on them, Donna and Angie would begin putting up traps around the windows and the doors, kind of like those stickers that you can put on a door or a window, so that if somebody were to open that door or window, it would rip the paper and you would be able to know that somebody had broken in. But in spite of all of these efforts, every time that Donna and Angie seemed to leave, they would set all of their traps and make sure nobody has been coming into their house, and then they would leave and come back, and the doll would continue to be in different positions, and they would keep on finding these notes, even though it was clear that nobody had been breaking into their house. And all of this would come to fruition when one day, Donna and Angie would return home from school, and what they saw when they entered their apartment terrified them. As soon as they had opened the door and walked into their apartment, what they saw was this Raggedy Ann doll standing completely upright, staring directly at them. And what freaked them out about this was the way that this doll was made is there was no rigid materials in the doll's legs or arms. There was no way to get the doll to stand up on its own. And so as soon as they walk into the house, they see this doll standing there and they think it's completely impossible that this doll would be standing there without anything touching it. So Donna goes over to the doll to touch the doll to see if maybe somebody had come in there and stuck wires up the doll's legs to somehow make it stand up. But as soon as she went over to the doll and touched it, the doll went completely limp and fell over. And then from that point on, no matter what Donna and Angie did, they could not make the doll stand up the way it had been standing up when they got home. And so after both seeing this, Donna and Angie look at each other and they don't really know what to do. Like, obviously there's something wrong with this doll. So they would end up actually going to a psychic medium to try to figure out what was going on with this seemingly haunted doll. And it was through this seance with this psychic medium that the medium was able to contact whatever was inside this doll, and it would actually tell the girls a very sad story. It said that she was the spirit of a 7-year-old little girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died in a tragic car accident years ago on the very same land that her apartment now stood. She said that she didn't mean to scare the girls, she was just looking for somebody to play with, but nobody wanted to play with her. That is, until 2 young college girls moved into the apartments and brought with them this little Raggedy Ann doll that she could play with. And as Donna and Angie were listening to this sad story that the spirit was telling them, they honestly felt bad for the little girl Annabelle that she had nobody to play with. So when she asked them if she could keep on playing with the doll and go home with them, Donna and Angie agreed. They told her that they would take her home and that she was more than welcome to keep on playing with their Raggedy Ann doll. And so Donna and Angie took the doll home with them, and instead of treating it like a doll, they began to treat it like a 7-year-old little girl, and they began calling this doll Annabelle. But little did Donna and Angie know that what they had just done had opened the door for Annabelle to get about her real purpose. You see, Annabelle had no interest in playing with this doll, and she wasn't the spirit of a 7-year-old girl. That thing that Donna and Angie had just invited into their home to live with them was a demon pretending to be a little girl, and what it really wanted was to possess a human host. And as soon as Donna and Angie took the doll back home, it immediately got to work. However, there was one person in the equation who wasn't so keen on letting this demon doll live with Donna and Angie. And that person was Angie's boyfriend, a man named Cal. Every time Cal was over at the apartment to visit his girlfriend Angie, he always said that he got a bad feeling about this voodoo doll that they were calling Annabelle. And at one point, Cal actually openly told both of the girls that they should just get rid of that creepy voodoo doll. And as it would seem, this Annabelle doll saw Cal as a threat. Because over the next week or so, Cal began to have terrifying nightmares every time he would go to sleep about this creepy Annabelle doll. And in these dreams, Cal would seem to wake up in his bed, but he would be completely paralyzed and unable to move. And as he would lay there frozen, wide awake but still dreaming, he would look over and start to see the Annabelle doll start to float across the room towards him. And in his dream, as he would lay there, the doll would float right up to him and it would grab him by the neck, and he would begin to struggle and fight in his dream, but he was still paralyzed, so he wasn't really able to do anything. And this would go on for a few minutes until eventually he would always wake up and he would just be drenched in sweat and terrified and unable to go back to sleep again. And during this time, while Cal was having these nightmares, there was one night when Cal was over at Donna and Angie's apartment, and all three of them were talking in the kitchen and just having polite conversation, when all of a sudden they heard a noise come from one of the bedrooms on the other side of the house. And when they heard this noise, Cal went back into the back bedroom to go see what this sound was, while Donna and Angie stayed in the kitchen. And of course, when Cal got into that room, there was no one in there except the doll, Annabelle. And this is when Cal would report that he was physically attacked by this Annabelle doll the same way he was attacked in his dreams. He would say that this doll became almost lifelike and began grabbing him by the neck and fighting him just like in his dreams, and it would leave 7 bloody scratch marks on his chest. Now, Donna and Angie didn't actually see the doll attacking him, but when they heard Cal's screams, they ran over into the bedroom where Cal was, and when they found him, the doll had gone back to being limp and just being a doll, but Cal did have 7 scratch marks on his chest. Now, after this, the girls and Cal were completely convinced that whatever was inside this doll, it wasn't some sweet little girl who was trying to play games. Clearly, the doll had more sinister intentions, and whatever was in it, they didn't want it around. So they would end up contacting 2 very well-known paranormal investigators named Ed and Lorraine Warren to come over and investigate exactly what was going on with this doll. And as soon as the Warrens would come over to investigate what was going on with this Annabelle doll, they would come to the same conclusion that Cal had thought all along. So Ed and Lorraine would approach Donna and Angie and tell them what they thought was going on with this Annabelle doll, and they would request to have a priest come over and bless the doll and cleanse the apartment of this demonic presence. And as soon as Donna and Angie heard what was going on with this doll, they wanted nothing to do with it anymore, and they actually asked Ed and Lorraine if they would just take the doll with them and just get it out of their lives forever. And at this request, Ed and Lorraine agreed to take the doll with them, and a priest would come over to the house and bless the doll and cleanse the apartment of this demonic presence. And as soon as the doll was gone and out of the apartment, all of the paranormal things that had been happening to Donna and Angie completely stopped. But while this priest was blessing the Annabelle doll and cleansing the apartment, at one point he would look the doll straight in the face and say, "You're just a rag doll. You can't hurt anyone." And after he was done, he would hand the doll over to Ed and Lorraine, and he would leave. But only a few hours later, this priest would call Ed and Lorraine and warn them that after he had left the apartment, the brakes in his car had given out and he had been in a terrible car accident which had almost killed him. And it did seem that this Annabelle doll did have a thing for motor vehicle accidents, which seemed to be some kind of cruel joke considering that that's how Annabelle had died to begin with. And though the paranormal nightmare was over for Donna and Angie, that was not the case for Ed and Lorraine. After they left the apartment and took the Annabelle doll with them, as they were driving home from Donna and Angie's apartment with the Annabelle doll in their car, Ed would actually decide to take side roads and back roads to avoid traffic, knowing that there was a strong possibility that they might start to have car trouble with this doll in their car. And it was a good thing he did that, because as they expected, they began to have all kinds of car trouble. There was times when the brakes would give out, the steering would give out, and there was multiple times in which Ed almost completely lost control of the car, and they almost did get in multiple car accidents. But after praying over the doll and dousing the doll in holy water, Ed and Lorraine were able to successfully bring the doll to their occultic museum, where they held all different kinds of paranormal linked items that they had come across through all of the cases that they had worked as paranormal investigators. And one would think that this is where our story comes to an end. But there is one last story involving the Annabelle doll, which I feel like I should tell you. After the Annabelle story was dramatized by movies such as Annabelle and The Conjuring, there were many people that were interested in seeing the real Annabelle doll in Ed and Lorraine's occultic museum. And one such young man who came to Ed and Lorraine's museum with his girlfriend would actually come into the museum to go see the Annabelle doll. And when this young man went up to the Annabelle display that the Warrens had kept it in, he began banging on the glass and taunting this doll, telling Annabelle to scratch him up like it had done to Cal. And as soon as Ed saw what this young man was doing with the Annabelle doll, he told him that he was being immature and stupid and told him to get out of the museum. And Ed saw both this kid and his girlfriend to the door and watched them climb on their motorcycle and drive away. But only minutes after getting kicked out of the museum by Ed Warren and leaving on his motorcycle, this kid would completely lose control of his motorcycle and he would actually fly off the road and hit a tree, killing him instantly and leaving his girlfriend in the hospital for more than a year. And eventually, when this girl was able to be interviewed about what had caused the crash, she would admit that moments before the crash, she and her boyfriend had been laughing and joking about just how stupid the Annabelle doll was. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching this episode of StoryVault. Go down in the comments right now and let me know what you thought of this kind of story. I should tell you that all of the details of this story that I've told are reportedly true, but this story has, of course, been told and retold in many different Hollywood stories and in books and movies. So some of the details found online can be difficult to decipher fact from fiction. Some skeptics have theorized that the whole story is false, with just Donna and Angie and Cal making up the story with the help of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who did go on to make a lot of money selling admission to their museum and giving talks and lectures telling the Annabelle story. But there are many witnesses and many people involved in this story who are still alive today, which does lend validity to the idea that this story is in fact true. So what do you think? Was it a demon? A ghost? Was it the spirit of this 7-year-old girl?
Turn around.
What really
It's
happened
me.
the night that Annabelle
Follow my voice. Everything's going to be okay. My love. Everything will be fine. It's all over now.